Hello! Welcome back to another video, you guys. Today we have a special one as a new XYZ support card was just announced.
Exciting!
I know that I was a bit late on the ban list announcement video, so I wanted to try my best to be one of the first ones to release a video and talk about the new Gagaga Girl cell phone subtraction, or Gagaga Girl 00 cell, which would be a reference to her ability in the anime, sorry. I'm not really sure what the proper translation is yet, but first off, before getting into the applications of this card, let's just take a second to read it and see what it does.
Reading.
So, of course, she is a level 3 Dark Spellcaster effect monster with 1000 attack and 800 defense, and you can only use each of her abilities once per turn. The first effect says, if your opponent special summons a monster or monsters from the extra deck, you can target one face-up monster you control, special summon this card from your hand, then immediately after this effect resolves, XYZ summon using only it and the targeted monster. When you do, treat this card's level the same as that monster's. The secondary effect reads, if this card would be detached to activate an XYZ monster's effect, you can change the attack of one face-up monster your opponent controls to 0. Let's go over some of the cons and obvious stuff first. Yes, this card has turn 0 capabilities, but with some caveats. Of course, as the card states, the opponent has to have special summoned a monster from the extra deck, which means you need to wait until they commit to some plays, which can potentially mean that this card can die and become useless if the opponent summons something like Ripper, which can negate hand interaction, or if they make another monster in general that can just negate monster effects. While at the same time, you also need to have a monster on the field for this card to target, which not only means you need other cards in hand that also offer turn 0 capability, but if that monster leaves the field due to the opponent interacting back with you, this card has a chance to resolve without effect, leaving you effectively with nothing. The secondary effect of this card is obviously not that great, as dropping the attack of a monster to 0 isn't incredibly useful, but it could potentially come up in some niche case scenarios against monsters that can't be targeted and have high attack stats, such as something like Dragoon, for example, to hopefully at least prevent death and giving you another turn to crack back against the opponent. Now that we've read the card and gone over some of the cons, let's talk about the applications of this card and some of the pros that it has to offer.
Let's hear it.
First off, let's talk about how this card can potentially work within its own archetype. Sadly, I don't think that there are any turn 0 application within Onomats, but it still allows you an extra summonable body that can quick XYZ if your plays are stopped on turn 1 before you're able to actually XYZ summon on your turn, which can potentially lead to some small interactions with the opponent, or simply just give you a way to survive until turn 3, with something like Lars if you're forced to pass on Dododo Warrior, as it can just give you a extra Omni Negate to hopefully do something with the opponent, interact with them in a way that matters. Or if your opponent decides to leave the level 4 on field and not interact with it at all, it can also give you something like Exciton Knight, which can field wipe during the battle phase, as some opponents may not feel the need to interact with a level 4 dead body on the field right away. Overall, for this archetype, I think that it's a fine extender, but I don't think that its best use case scenario is actually going to exist within its own archetype. Next, let's talk about K9. I think that this archetype could potentially greatly benefit from having access to this card, as it gives you another way of XYZ summoning into a level 5 during the opponent's turn if your Azuna just so happens to get ashed or something else. As someone who prefers to play pure K9, it can even give you a nice extender through Lupus in hand or graveyard if you don't have access to another level 5 on field already as is. I would need to do some testing, but overall, I think that this card could be a great fit and could inhibit some wacky plays. An archetype that works with K9, of course, that could also benefit from this card is Vanquished Soul. HAIII Sue is obviously a fantastic card, and similar to the reasoning with Azuna, it can allow you to go into some rank 5 XYZ plays after using your HAIII Sue effect, and is even a dark monster, which already gives you some inherent synergy within the Vanquished Soul archetype based on the reveal effects. Another archetype that immediately comes to mind would be Kashtira. as they already have two cards that can potentially play on turn 0 in Scareclaw Kashtira and Tearlaman's Kashtira, and would enable you the ability to go into some rank 7 plays. Unfortunately, the rank 7 options are not as fantastic as some rank 4 or 5s or even 6s like we saw with Lars, like some of these other archetypes have access to, but that doesn't mean that one won't come out in the future they can't abuse, and even if the targets aren't great right now, it still allows you to make cards like Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, which can inflict some burn damage to lower your opponent's life points a bit, or even something like number 76, which has the ability to essentially called by the grave an opponent's monster from the graveyard by attaching it to itself. So this might be a card that comes up and is potentially useful against an opponent's deck who relies on a lot of graveyard effects, mainly something like Tearlaman's, in Master Duel. Moving on to another archetype that could potentially benefit off of the new Gagaga Girl is Fire Kings. This deck famously already has the ability to turn 0 field wipe, and this just gives them another ability to do so via Kieran. Now, not only do they have access to the normal field wipe from the Jurak package that they've been using recently, but now they can even field wipe off of Hyang as well if they open Kieran and the ability to get it onto the field. The only downside to using it in Fire Kings, of course, is the fact that the new Gagaga Girl is not a fire type, which is kind of a big deal in Fire King. This card can even offer the ability of Draco Tail to Xyz summon on turn 0 as well because of Femina. Femina obviously can activate her effect to go into Arthalion and do normal Draco Tail plays, and then afterwards, as soon as you're done using Arthalion, boom, all of a sudden, now your opponent has to stare down a number 38 Hope Harbinger or something like this on turn 0 as well. Maybe if you're not a fan of Hope Harbinger, you could also use like the Galaxy Eyes guy, the Photon Lord, right? Something else like that. Some other arcs that I could potentially see playability in would be Exo Sister, as Martha only locks you for the turn, and if you get stopped on turn 1, you can still use the Gagaga Girl to go into one of your rank 4s, like a Sophiel, which can prevent the opponent from activating cards in their graveyard, or even another archetype like Goblin Bikers, that can, under the same circumstances, get you into an Xyz card on the opponent turn, to where you can make something like Crazy Beast to prevent destruction if your opponent's trying to field wipe you, or just use some sort of targeting pop. And even if you don't end on a level 6 and end on a level 3 instead, you could also potentially just make something like Gossip Shadow if you're forced to pass on one of your normal level 3 monsters. The point is that this card has a lot of use case scenarios and a lot of different archetypes, and truthfully, I think that she will only get better over time as the game continues to evolve forward towards turn 0 plays in the future. As always, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this card and chat with you about it in the comment section down below. So please let me know, chat with me about it. Am I glazing this card just because I love Xyz cards and archetypes in general? Do you guys also think that it has some unique playability? Maybe I'm underestimating this card and you guys think that it's more broken than I'm portraying. I'm not really sure. Let's talk about it. With that being said, that's going to be all from me today. I hope that you all have an amazing morning, afternoon, or evening. And if possible, maybe share this video with a friend who is also super passionate about Xyz cards. I love you all so much. Thank you for the support that you guys have been giving me over the recent weeks. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!